Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron and welcome back to the Gamertron Show.
Enemies! We need enemies!
Yes, we do. Oh, indeed, we do. And today, in this video, that is exactly what we're going to talk about. Enemies in video games. Hostile NPCs. The bad guys. Whether it be the low-level grunts to the mini-bosses to the full-fledged boss battles. I really think a lot of people who play video games underestimate the importance of enemies in video games. So, without further ado, let me shine some light on our dark, diabolical adversaries that we fight all the time in our video games. Now, when it comes to action video games usually, most likely, 99% of the time, consist of violence. Consist of ranged and physical combat. And in order for combat to happen, no duh, you need combatants. You, the playable character, whether it be in single player or multiplayer co-op of course, up against AI combatants. So really, with most action games, if not all action games, whether it be a shooter, a beat-em-up, or a hack and slash, or some combination or variation of any of those, you need a target to shoot at, to hack and slash at, to beat up. Combat violence, it's a two-way street. It requires multiple participants. Sorry, I really don't mean to insult your intelligence here, guys. I'm just pointing out the basics, the obvious for now, because with action video games, enemies are essential. They're essential to the game as a whole, to its structure, to your experience with the game. How the AI of the enemies perform, how the enemies themselves look, how they respond to your actions, how they try to, or how many ways they try to actually kill you in-game to give you that dreaded game over screen. All these elements surround the player and his combatants, your AI enemies. This is all essential game design that is impossible without the enemies, the many enemies we fight in our video games every day, every time we boot up an action game. Whether it be Goombas, Nazis, aliens, zombies, or dragons. A great deal of the memorable experiences we have in our video games is due to the enemies. And while there are absolutely some gamers that, like me, love video game enemies, we love fighting unique enemies, we love it when enemies have character and personality and clever ideas surrounding them. For those of you who are interested to hear me talk more about video game enemies and share with you my favorite enemies to fight from video games, I'll have a link to my top 10 favorite video game enemies in the comment section and in the description. Give you guys a taste and an idea of what kind of enemies I like to fight in my games. But to give you guys a reference point in this video, I like enemies that are dynamic, colorful, and creative. Now, not every video game needs to have a varied cast of foes. Although it certainly does help. I mean, there are video games that get by well enough by having completely, let's say, a mediocre bestiary. I mean, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Grand Theft Auto, Watch Dogs, Sleeping Dogs, and a great deal of other military shooters and open world games have you fighting pretty generic enemies, your standard thug or soldier, your Spetsnaz, your mercenary, your drug cartel, your Russian mafia. Basically just dudes with guns, people with guns. And while don't get me wrong, absolutely those games I have mentioned can be quite a bit of fun even though you're fighting a pretty generic assortment of bad guys. But hey, if action movies can have the protagonist shooting at random bad guy with a gun, number 101, multiple times, I think video games have the right to get away with that too. I mean, we have just as much fun watching the piss getting beaten out of some asshole human being as much as we do any alien, monster, etc. However, those aliens and monsters, etc., really do help with diversifying the combat situations and memorable action-packed experiences, well, in action games. I mean, look at games like Halo, like BioShock, like Dead Space, like Fallout, like Elder Scrolls, like Borderlands, like Serious Sam, like Shadow Warrior, like Mass Effect, like Saints Row, like Sanctum, like Devil May Cry, like, of course, Doom. Sure, we remember these video games for their main protagonists and their fun-to-use weapons and their varied and colorful locations, but what is consistent throughout all these games, through the badass protagonists, through the awesome guns and the beautiful, memorable locations, there are the enemies that inhabit these worlds that we go up against, that we build these memorable experiences off of. Like in Halo, the first time you encounter hunters. Before that point, you had just been battling grunts, jackals, and elites. Then this big, hulking beast comes down this transporter beam, followed by yet another one. Then you start to learn about the hunter, discovering its gooey orange weak spots, and how hunters always travel in pairs. To give another example of big, hulking armored enemies, the Big Daddies from BioShock. They're this big, hulking, threatening, armored monster, but they won't attack you. They don't even care about you. They won't even look at you. You're nothing to them, unless you threaten their little sisters. One last example. The Collectors from the Mass Effect trilogy. In the Mass Effect 2 single-player campaign, going up against the Collectors was an event, a milestone in the single-player campaign. Going up the Collectors at any point in the game meant you were making serious progress, that something big was happening. They built up the Collectors as second only to the Reapers themselves, and they are an effective, coordinated fighting force. The regular Collector drones will fly around from cover to cover, and using a tactic of just overwhelming force, constantly barraging you with weapon fire. And from time to time getting possessed by one of my favorite villains, Harbinger, assuming direct control of individual Collectors, providing sort of a commander unit on the battlefield that will boost up his allies and give serious damage to you. And then fighting the Collectors in Mass Effect 3, specifically the multiplayer. The Collectors in the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer community are generally in agreement that the Collectors are the hardest motherfuckers to battle in that game. They are just such an effective, demoralizing fighting force. You have the Collector captains who are constantly spewing out drone swarms, and if they hit you, they disable your powers temporarily, which can be, it just gives them such an edge in combat. We have Scions that act as both snipers and long-range artillery. We have Abominations that act as kamikazes, and the dreaded Praetorians, which just force you to fall back as they are relentless in their assault. It's memorable, colorful characters and opponents like these that make our experiences in our video games, and specifically our action combat-oriented video games, so much more memorable. I mean, if it wasn't for the Big Daddies and Splicers in BioShock, it probably wouldn't be as fulfilling an experience. Sure, there's the great story and atmosphere, but they still have a role to play. Same thing with the Necromorphs from Dead Space, the Flood and the Covenant from Halo, the numerous factions in Fallout, the numerous factions in Skyrim, the Russian soldiers and mutants from Singularity. I just had to bring up Singularity somewhere. I've been dying to talk about that game. Oh yes, and Bulletstorm. The variety of crazy bandits and mutants also enrage the crazy bandits and mutants. There's a lot of mutants in video games, I just realized. Oh yes, and robots. Lots of robots too. Oh yeah, and zombies. Oh, so many zombies. I mean, Left 4 Dead, Dead Rising, Dying Light, blah blah blah. There's so many others. Oops. Sorry, I'm getting off topic a bit. Point is, guys, I think we're taking enemies in our video games just a tad bit for granted. I mean, if it wasn't for the Grineer, Corpus, and Infested, Warframe would be a much lesser of a game. Same goes for Killing Floor without the Zeds, or Dark Souls without its twisted menagerie of nightmares. Only in Japan, man. I mean, have you seen some of the shit you fight in Dark Souls? I'm talking giant mushrooms, cats, armored elephants, and a lot of other crazy stuff. Do you guys see? Do you see what I'm getting at here? I remember all these games. I remember my experiences with these games in large part due to the enemies, due to the unique opponents, these unique colorful characters that I battled. How could I forget them? They were an experience. They made a walk through a castle, a swamp, a spaceship, a destroyed city. It made a simple walk through these environments turn into dynamic, visceral fights for my life. And when you have such a variety, such a unique cast of characters all coming after you at once, it really challenges you. You have to be, pardon the pun, on your game. Because if you're just dealing with the rifleman, the sniper might get you, or the shotgunner. Should you deal with that heavy right away or go for his minions first? Oh wait, that enemy is only vulnerable on his back. Oh wait, if I kill that enemy, I can use his weapon against his friends. Moments like that, integral strategic tactical moments of thinking when going up against varied enemies that challenge you. Also, let's admit it, as absolutely fun as it is to kill the same guy over and over again, well, for me at least, as fun as that is, I like killing a variety of things, not just the same one thing over and over again, if you catch my drift. Anyways, guys, that has been a video. This has been a video. I hope you guys get my point, and I hope the next time you play an action-packed video game with a ton of enemies in it, you'll take the time to remember some of those evil faces before you blow them apart or cut them in half, would ya? This has been the Gamertron. This has been a video. Please leave a comment. What did you think of the video? What are your favorite enemies from video games? Have you watched my top 10 favorite video game enemies? What did you think of this video? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Let me know your thoughts, feelings, and opinions in the comment section below. I love reading comments. I don't get nearly enough comments. Please leave a comment. And if you liked the video, if you liked the gameplay, if you liked my commentary, if you liked anything and everything about this video at all, please hit the like button. Hitting the like button helps you, helps me, helps everybody involved with the video if you hit the like button. And finally, I am the Gamertron. I love video games, I love talking about video games, and if that's something that interests you, please consider supporting my channel by subscribing to me. Anyways, guys, this has been a video, and I will see you guys later.